What is good, Tinfoil Gang? The official trailer for Season 2 has arrived. So that means that the season opener for Severance is already breathing down your neck. Clear your calendars for January 17th, just in case you forgot. Now, we're not going to fuss with a big intro because there's a lot to cover. So what do you say we dive right in? But first, this is a spoiler video. And of course, big shout out to the patrons. Thank you so much for what you do. Shortest intro ever. It's time to dive. This is not the first trailer we've had for Season 2. This one definitely stands out as a little different, mainly because it uses a lot of very short clips that aren't necessarily related to each other. They're still full of things we need to take note of. So for that reason, I'm going to cover everything in this video, just not chronologically, because it gets way too messy, way too fast. So, as the trailer begins, a very robotic voice can be heard stating the lines, "Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet." That's a lot of big talk. But by the sounds of it, the voice is referring to might be Severance itself. This could be a sign that Lumen's campaign to get their Severance project normalized is well on its way to completion. This, as well as a handful of other clues, tell us that Helly's attempt at letting the world know what was really going on down on the 7th floor didn't work out the way she thought it might. So there's a shot of an empty corridor, and we hear this male voice whisper, "Mr. Scout." Then the voice seems to switch over to Milchick's voice, delivering a line. That's because Milchick is sitting in Mark's living room, and he appears to be trying to persuade Mark to come back to working on the 7th floor. Now, we know from a previous trailer that Mark did not come back to working on the 7th floor right after the jailbreak, the OTC, in the first season's finale, because Milchick says it's been a minute on his apparent return to that floor after a break of some length. So this trailer is telling us this break was Outie Mark's choice, and he needed to be convinced into returning. So we got proof that Lumen actually wants him to come back. Now in the clip, Milchick tells Mark that his innie is happy working on the 7th floor. More reason to return, right? So obviously Mark said yes, and just like that, the gang is back together again on the same floor, including Helly, which I did not expect. Now I should mention that we get shots from Mark in this trailer that appear to be from 2 different days. On one day, he has the light blue shirt, on the other day, he's wearing the white shirt. For example, white shirt Mark, as seen in this shot, suddenly wakes up in the elevator looking real sweaty. If this is the first time he's waking up since the OTC, then his last memory would be the moment he realized that Miss Casey is still alive. Allegedly. So he's still in that panic state. The first thing he might do in this situation, finding himself on the Lumen floor, might be to hightail it to Cobelt's noticeably vacant office and try to contact the board via the intercom. This explains the shots of him being followed by Milchick and why Milchick whips the cord out of the intercom before he gets his message out. Mark needs some time to calm down. So we've got to ask the question, why would Lumen want them to come back after all the trouble they caused? The answer might be as simple as PR. Milchick hands him a newspaper, normally forbidden, and the paper has an article in it that gives the impression that Lumen was able to twist the narrative of that fateful night into a W by making it look like a victory for the rights of severed workers. They're being lauded as whistleblowers. Well played, Lumen. It's a pretty nice spin you put on that one. You heard that correct, Tinfoil Gang. Severance reform has arrived. No doubt the incident of that night drew a lot of attention from the authorities, and Lumen was forced to treat their innies better, I suppose. What that actually means in the day-to-day has yet to be seen, though. Pay attention to the copious amounts of redacted lines on this paper. Maybe the rules have changed some, but management's control over their exposure to the outside is still very important. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that this is Helly's first day back. I'm assuming that's what we're seeing here because she looks really surprised to be in the elevator. Now let's take note of this crazy painting that O&D has posted on the wall here. This is proof that Lumen chooses the paintings for more than just their decorative purposes. Management is trying to send a message here. Art is highly subjective. You see what you want to see most of the time. But the message this painting is trying to express is pretty clear. If you inspect the painting a little closer, you'll notice that the 4 people buried here up to their shoulders, that's the MDR team. And the man holding the sword, that is, of course, Kier Egan. The message in the painting seems to be saying that MDR's actions were deserving of severe punishment, thus the sword. But Kier, or Lumen in this case, has chosen to show some grace and forgiven them for their sins, thus the hand on the head. So let's talk about blue shirt Mark scenes, because they all seem to take place on the same day, and this is not long after returning to the floor for the first time. The first one is the strangest to me because it shows Mark in the Lumen parking lot, but he's moving nervously like he's trying to avoid being seen or getting caught. Note that it's nighttime in the shot. Now I know it is winter, so a lot of times it's dark before you even get out of work, but why is he running unless he's trying to sneak in somewhere? Now the next time we see Mark, he's inside with the rest of the MDR crew, and it's daytime, so we're talking work hours. They're all talking about how they're shocked that they're not in trouble, and that they might even be famous. And of course, Dylan thinks he might be the most famous of the four. Now, one of the things that the paper mentioned from the earlier shot is that the four members of MDR gave a speech as outies praising the heroism of their innies. Now, it looks like it may have been a Lumen event, and the paper mentions Rickon's names. This does make sense. If MDR's actions caught the attention of the country, that might put a damper on what Lumen can get away with when it comes to handing out punishments. Now, another scene from the same day shows the four sitting in some area of the 7th floor that I don't recognize, but they appear to be watching something in this room. We'll come back to this at the end of the video because we'll have more information by then. Now, they don't seem too impressed though. They're talking about what they saw on the outside while they were innies, but we don't get to hear any details. We do get a line from Irving where he's basically saying that the outside world is not for them. But of course, we know his situation, so he's feeling a bit deflated. Okay, so the second half of the trailer gets a little darker and a little wackier. We get another shot of Outie Irv, and he's touching a wall covered in the paintings of the elevator, reminding us of his connection to it. Now, the best guess we have as fans is that he knows this elevator because he used to be in Milchick's shoes, and that memory is somehow leaking into his Outie side of things. There's a shot of Mark cautiously making his way down the narrow hall, but notice that he's not wearing the usual work attire. He's got a sweater on. Did he break into the building? There is another shot of Mark and Devin at what looks like Pip's diner. Notice that Mark is wearing the same sweater as he was in the break room hallway shot. Mark is not happy with the suggestion that his deceased wife might be alive, but that's exactly what Devin says his innie told her. Now, I can see how he might have a hard time believing something like that offhand, but if she convinces him that it's worth looking into, it would explain the break room scene perfectly. Now, moving on to Cobell and Mark and that confrontation that they have in front of the house in the middle of the night. Outie Mark seems to have it in for her, and we can probably guess why that is. He must know that she works for Lumen and she's been lying to him about her identity the entire time. Devin would have told him, no doubt, and he's well within his rights to ask a few questions. Questions like, do you know something about Gemma? Inquiring minds want to know. Now, back on the inside, it becomes clear that Mark has recruited the rest of MDR in his mission to locate Miss Casey. This explains the hand-drawn portraits of her in the copier. This looks like the handiwork of Irving, so I'm guessing that Mark requested that he draw her so that he could make flyers to hand out to the other departments. I'm also pretty willing to bet that Lumen is going to frown upon this. I wonder how they'll respond to all of this insubordination given all the recent exposure. Also, what happens to Cobell now that Mark knows who she is? Does she stay in that house? Does she keep the same position? This Severance trailer saves the freakiest stuff for the final moments. It gets pretty wild, so hold on to your butts. First, we get this shot of MDR walking through the wilderness. The phrase, "there are no roads where we're going," comes to mind. I couldn't tell you what they're up to here, but they must be trying to find something or someone in the middle of nowhere. So then we get hit with that robotic sounding voice again. Same line, only we have a face to go with it this time. This man's grill bothers me for some reason. I don't know what it is for sure. I don't know, maybe it's the hair, or maybe it's because I can't say for sure if he's even a real person. We can't say who he's talking to, so it's hard to say what's going on here. But whatever he's talking about is related to the Severance project, no doubt. Now, Irving gets another shot, and it looks like he's up to something sneaky at a phone booth in the middle of the night somewhere. We saw this shot in a previous trailer. The consensus on him is that he's out doing detective work for his secret mission, and I hope we learn more about that in this season. This could add a whole new layer of intrigue to the show, and that's a good thing. Now, there is a very short clip of Bert. Obviously, this is Outie Bert, and there's just something odd about the look that he shoots at this person that he's talking to. Unfortunately, we don't know who that is, so it's hard to say. If I were to hazard a guess, I would say it's probably Irving. Maybe he's meeting up with him as an outie, or it could be Milchick paying him a visit for some reason. And if he was paying him a visit, it might have something to do with Irving anyway. But a visit from Milchick would explain the look on his face. We do see a shot of Mark and Helly, and it's a strange one. They're walking through a room inside of Lumen, and the room is full of goats that are grazing on rolling green hills of grass inside the building. Okay. So the goats return in season 2, and hopefully the people who work in this department will tell us what the heck this is all for. The shot transitions into Helly right after her big expose, and she's walking down the glass hallway we saw in the previous trailer. This is probably her meeting with the board about the night's events and what has to happen next. She's doing this as Outie Helly. She has no idea of what happened or why, but I'm curious to see what she thinks about the actions of her innie. Will she show some empathy, or will she make her life worse? Oh wait, we already get an answer to that. Outie Helly doesn't seem to give a crap about her innie, and she also seems fully on board with the board's goals. This is evident by her response to Cobell after being told that she doesn't value the innies, she only fears them. And Helly responds with, "We fear no one." with a fair amount of confidence, I might add. I did think for a brief moment that her saying we instead of I sounded really strange, like she's speaking for the board, which made me question in what capacity. She's talking like she represents the company here. Either way, the next shot is very interesting because we see Helly watching a video of her innie kissing Mark. This is in the same boardroom. This would be the last day she showed up to work, the night of the OTC. When Helly sees this kiss, she smiles. Now, if Audi Helly is as cruel as she's led us to believe, she might be smiling because she just discovered how she'll manipulate her innie going forward. There's also a shot of a tray of dental tools, which was a surprise. This is one of those things that rarely comes up in the theory discussions, but I'm sure it's important. So Mark is shown in what looks like another department on the 7th floor, and judging by the shot, he's enthusiastically trying to convince them of something. This is probably more of the outreach that got O&D involved in the story. Irv's melon sculpture returns in this trailer, and the best guess is that Irv is being retired in the same way that Bert was in the first season. Why is this happening? I have a theory on that. So now we have what looks like Helly and Mark, and they're having a steamy moment. The red light makes me think that this is happening on the 7th floor. It's good to see that they're taking full advantage of the new, more relaxed rules on the floor. But I think what this is telling us is that any Mark and any Helly and Miss Casey's love triangle is official, if this is correct. So this one's a bit confusing. I'm not sure what this is about yet, but we can see that Mark is sitting in a car while it's happening, and he's holding this light with the words, "Who is alive?" on it. The fact that he's in a car is what throws me off, but I think it's a good guess that he might be somehow using this light to locate Gemma on the secret floor she disappears to. Now there is this odd shot of a severed employee from another department, and she's using a cowbell for some reason. The only thing I can imagine here is that it may be related to the goats. Based on her outfit, I'm thinking this woman and these dudes might be members of the goat rustling department. The shot that I mentioned in the beginning with MDR sitting at that table and talking, well, we come back to that again, but this time we have more context. We see Irv watching an animation of himself on a monitor. Again, this looks like it's happening inside of Lumen, so the rules have changed somewhat since we've been here. It may be that MDR's fame has reached the point where the outside world has turned them into household names, and this video might be the result of said fame. Either way, Irving seems to like it. Okay, so we need to know what in the world Milchick is doing here. This man is fully prepared for winter, but he's holding a walkie-talkie and he's turning dials, and that's usually not good. Now, he's more than likely doing some dirt for Lumen on the outside. That seems to be his MO. But what this scene is about is impossible to say right now, although we might guess that it has something to do with the shots of MDR walking around in the frozen wilderness. And if it's Milchick, he's probably trying to track them or stop them from reaching their goal. So let's not pass over this shot of Helly. She's definitely not bobbing for apples here. It looks like someone is forcing this, and it's a good guess that this might be a new form of punishment for her. If this is what it looks like, we can rest assured knowing that Helly will continue living up to her reputation in season 2. So the last scene has to be the one that everybody's talking about. Mark is sitting at a lunchroom table with 4 people. 3 appear to be severed innies from another MDR department. Or they could be the new MDR department. One of the people at this table looks really young, like too young for the job, but she's claiming to be the new deputy manager. Could she be Cobell's replacement? And so does this mean that MDR was broken up? Remember that melon carving of Irving that looks like it's a retirement gift? Remember the previous trailer? The one where Dylan is sitting with a mysterious man who looks an awful lot like him somewhere else on the severed floor? If you recall, in the last trailer, we learned that Mark comes to work one day and he runs into 3 people he's never met claiming to be MDR. Are we looking at a department refresh? And are these the replacements? When MDR came back, were they so out of control that management decided to separate them to keep them in line? As for the new deputy manager, she's got to be a product of Lumen somehow, because this doesn't make a whole lot of sense otherwise, unless she just looks very young for her age. Anyway, love to hear your theories on that one. This is wild, but it confirms that the uniformed men and the cowbell woman in the other shot, they're all part of that goat herder group. But what is the deal with this guy? I can't help you. I don't think I can help you with this one. My guess, he's the head of the department, obviously. That's all I got. This trailer gave us a lot of information. The biggest and most important thing that it answers is, how does Lumen respond to MDR? For now, we know that we're going to see everybody again, but we're also going to get a bunch of new characters. So I do think that in the coming season, we might actually be getting into what Lumen is really about, like the real nitty-gritty meat and potatoes, as it were. It should be really interesting. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. If you did enjoy it, you already know what to do. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it to the end. Shout out to the patrons, as always. Looking forward to January 17th. Anyway, that's it for now. Be safe out there, tinfoilers. Always be kind to yourself. And until the next time, off you go.